Good afternoon. It is afternoon now, 2 minutes after. Just a minute. Now I've got to let those two people in. I'm Pam Wycliffe, and I'm a third of the committee that puts together Lunch with the League every month, and the other is Melanie and Kathy Platt. And a little bit about the League. We never support or oppose any political party or candidate. We are a nonpartisan political organization encouraging informed and active participation in government. And we have two separate and distinct roles. Excuse me. One is voter services and citizen education. We present unbiased information about elections, voting process, and issues. And the other thing that we do are action and advocacy. Though we're nonpartisan, after studying issues, we will use our positions to advocate for or against particular policies in the public interest. Because of that, the comments and opinions of people who might speak today aren't those necessarily for those of the League. We'll be here from now till 1. The format is for Nanci, excuse me, she will speak for about a half hour. And then when she finishes, we will have questions and answers. Oops, and there's some more people that want to come in. So what I'm asking, one, is for everybody to mute. And then also, if you have a question for Nanci, put it in the chat. And when it comes time for question and answer, we'll read them to her and she will answer all your questions. For more information about our League, the Lunch with the League of Women Voters, and our positions, go to www.lwvsouthbend.org. Now, I am for our news, League news, before we get started on our program today, I am one of the 3 chairs for the League of Women Voters registration, and I need to promote. We are gearing up for a very busy season, given this is a national election year. We have written and received grants this year, one for registering young people in our area high schools who will be 18 by the election date in November. And we also received a grant, excuse me, as a league engaging incarcerated and previously incarcerated people in the electoral process, and in particular working to mitigate the widespread disparities in voting among incarcerated people and people with felony convictions, as well as the corresponding need for educational outreach to affected voters. We are and that's a new one for us. We're very excited about all that we can accomplish this year, but we need a lot of you, members of the League, who would like to join us in these endeavors. If you're interested in registering voters in any of these categories, and we're also doing the regular events that we normally do, where we set up the table places. So if you're interested in registering voters this spring and through the summer, let us know. The more the merrier. Contact Nimby Cushing, Beth North, or myself, and we will happily continue to tell us when you can help us for the next event, whenever that is. But it is fun to do. In the community, there is a pop-up university, the rise of elected autocrats and the abdication of responsible politicians on Thursday, February 15th at 6 o'clock at the Lang Lab, South Bend. That's 1302 High Street. And everybody's invited. Join Dr. Carlos Lisoni, Assistant Professor of Political Science at IU South Bend, for a brief talk on the rise of authoritarianism and elected autocrats over the past 2 decades. So that's our news. And now we have, unless somebody else has some newsy thing they need to say, Oh, here's two more people coming in, so maybe they'll have something to say. I don't know. Anyway, so we'll go on to our speaker, who is Nanci Flores, spelled with a Y and not an I. She is the co-founder of One More Citizen Inc. She has lived and worked in Michiana. I'm going to read this. Her entire life, she holds a bachelor's degree in social work and in nursing, has worked in social work in the community nonprofits since 1987. I thought you were born in 1987. You don't look old enough to. Anyway, before that, she was an RN in obstetrics and labor and delivery. As a member of a blended immigrant family over the past 17 years, Nanci has dedicated her work and efforts to founding and directing citizenship and immigration legal programming, English classes, and free bilingual non-immigration legal consultations at La Casa de Amistad and other area nonprofits. Since 2007, her work has resulted in successful area citizenship classes and programs with an unprecedented 100% passing rate of the USCIS Naturalization interview and exam for over 1,100 US citizens in the region from over 87 countries. The League of Women Voters of South Bend area was proud to recognize Nanci's important work in 2018 by selecting her to receive the League's annual Making Democracy Work Award. And the same year, she was a recipient of the Celebrating Michiana Women Leaders Award for women who've made positive and lasting contributions in our community. And then in 2019, as if that wasn't enough, in 2019, Mayor Pete Buttigieg recognized Nanci for a program she founded and directed, providing immigration legal clinics through La Casa, earning her the United Way Program of the Year award. She now brings her experience in citizenship programming and processes as the co-founder of One More Citizen Inc. to further citizenship education, advocacy, and successful naturalization in extending locations throughout the region, offering more of our immigrant neighbors greater access to these vital services. And today, she's going to tell us all about that. Nanci, the floor is yours, or the computer is yours.
Thank you so much, Pam. That was very kind. For the record, I was born in 1965, so I was ending my studies in 87. So I am going to go ahead and just share my screen here if that works for everybody. Um, Sorry, I had it pulled up, but now I have to find it again. Here we go. And I'll go from there. So yes, I just want to say thank you again for your very kind introduction. It's a pleasure and a privilege for me to be able to join you all today. Um, I just so very much value the work that the League does. It so much aligns with the work that I do. And I have, over the years, tried my best in my little corner of the world to support the work that the League does and to bring, more voters to the table in our community. So thank you for all the work that you all do. I just can't thank you enough, honestly. I send from you all, and our new citizens are grateful for that as well. So, as Pam said, I started my work in the immigrant community over 17 years ago, and it was really out of a sense of wanting to serve our neighbors and friends. After I married into an immigrant family, especially from Mexico, and having and, and heard their immigration journeys and went through the citizenship process with my own husband, I was just really wanted to be a part of helping make this process easier for other immigrant families living in the United States. So throughout my career, I have been fortunate after having been a nurse for many years, I decided that I wanted to just kind of get back into volunteering and went back to my social work roots and started volunteering in the nonprofit world and ended up, having access to, really finding gaps in services and trying to find ways to respond in our community for those who were just arriving or had been here for a while and weren't really finding the kinds of services that they wanted in the English language world. Um, and so I found a way to reintroduce English classes in the community. Um, then heard from those students in the classes that I started at La Casa that the most common reason they wanted to improve their English was to be able to pass the naturalization interview and exam. That was one of the big motivators for learning English, along with just improving English is helpful, right? So in response, I initiated the English and Spanish citizenship classes that started out with just 5 students, and they quickly grew every year to an average of 20 to 40 students a class session, honestly, over the years, depending on how close we were to an election or not. And now we are at the point where, with One More Citizen, this new nonprofit we've formed, we have over 50 students in our classes right now, spread across 3 classrooms at St. Casimir. We are bursting at the seams. We just don't have enough space. So it's really grown exponentially and been a really great thing to be a part of. During classes throughout the years, our expressed the great need for affordable immigration services to help them apply for citizenship. Yes. And so as a result, I start and direct a nonprofit immigration legal services program to serve hundreds of immigrant families in our area, still serving hundreds of immigrant families along with classes I founded over the years. Um, Throughout all of this, I maintain the goal of expanding access to resources and citizenship program in our region and have responded to voices desired of immigrant families, the desires of immigrant families and community members to find ways to meet people kind of where they are in the heart of the immigrant community in their neighborhoods with classes and assistance in a familiar and trusted surrounding. There is a great need in our community and all over the country for more citizenship programming and immigration areas where immigrants live and work. In some places, people are having to travel 100 miles to find those kinds of services. So, and that used to be the case here. I've been hearing the desire so much in the community that more citizenship classes would be available in our area. And there was a hope from people that I talked to that classes could return to the immigrant neighborhoods. And so when the opportunity arose with co-founder Paul Hernandez to further this work through developing One More Citizen as a nonprofit, it was really a perfect opportunity to expand this programming. So I kind of seized upon it. I've always sort of seized the day when opportunities arose. So um, it's also been long time work of mine to help educate and inform voters in the immigrant community, as well as those striving for the right to vote upon becoming U.S. citizens. For over 1,100 of those local community members, as Pam mentioned, who have become citizens in my programs, um, I've made myself available to all of them to help inform them in the voting process on voting rights and where to find information on candidates for elected office, even something as simple as how does a voting machine work. People will often come to me and say, "This is my first time voting. I don't know how to do that." And so I definitely have made myself available there in the hopes of just, helping people use their voices in the voting booth. So our hope with One More Citizen is to continue to help more qualifying immigrants to achieve success in their citizenship journeys so that they too can participate with their votes in this and beyond. This is an election year. We're definitely seeing a greater interest in citizenship and a greater need for education classes in citizenship. We're thrilled to be able to be a part of that effort alongside our students, honestly. When we think about citizenship and how that process works for those embarking on the path of naturalization, there are, of course, hurdles and things to be aware of. So I'm not an immigration attorney, but I am going to share with you really briefly some of those hurdles. If you get dizzy, don't worry, that happens to all of us. This is U.S. immigration law. So, immigration pathways. In general, the path to citizenship is most often years in the making. It's years long. And it leads eventually to legal permanent residence and remains complicated all along the way. The pathway to citizenship begins with first gaining legal permanent resident status, and you can do that through any number of ways. Status, legal permanent resident status can be maintained your entire life. You can choose to become or not, as long as you remain with physical presence in the state, you can have your legal resident status. Really, the last significant immigration laws were passed in 1996 and in 2006, and none of them have significantly addressed or accurately addressed the increasing backlog of the 11 million immigrants living, working, and contributing in this country, hoping to normalize their legal status. Um, Continuously changing immigration policies over recent years, especially through executive order instead of, it would be presidential executive order instead of congressional and then presidential passed law, and not enacting fair and comprehensive immigration reform or law, create confusion and have developed difficult pathways for people that often prevent possibilities from moving forward in their legal status. So some of the that people face that can't, where there are no potential pathways forward. You know, you've heard of DACA, which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. President Obama passed by executive order. It wasn't law in July of 2012, so it's not protected by law. It is for children who came to the United States before the age of 16, generally. DACA has been challenged and upheld in the courts ever since then and remains stalled with no foreseeable immigration law to protect DACA recipients. There are approximately 700,000 in the United States who have. There could be many, many, many more, millions more, honestly, but that was stalled in the courts. DACA recipients have grown up in the United States. Essentially, they're Americans, essentially, and they're contributing to our economy and everyday lives, and really have no path forward if, especially if DACA disappears. Um, Muslim travel bans, those were enacted in the last presidential administration, enacted and rescinded. And, anytime there's any kind of a punitive type of immigration policy that's enacted, it creates a ripple effect in the immigrant community where if you're Muslim, if you're not Muslim, they're banning someone, and the message is clear. Some people are excluded and some people are not wanting to be included. And so that creates fear in the entire immigrant community in general, and especially among the targeted group at the time. Applied asylum and humanitarian parole. Admissions are an issue right now. Asylum is actually a part of established U.S. immigration law. Yet people seeking asylum increasingly, um, since the start of the pandemic and in around that time, have been required to wait outside the United States to apply for asylum. Asylum and refugee status, there are two different statuses. Asylum is actually entering the United States, where someone comes in and asks for asylum for protection from harm in their home country. You actually have to do it inside the United States. Um, since the pandemic, especially, asylees have been forced to wait outside the United States and wait their turn for an appointment to ask for asylum. So that is not technically the way the law is supposed to be applied, but it's happening right now, and it's causing a huge stopgap of people just outside our borders that could have been processed and should have been processed under asylum law. And right now, because we have had newer arrivals from places like Ukraine and Afghanistan, asylum policy is being unevenly applied. Some of these folks are receiving expedited asylum processing. Their approvals are happening faster than, for example, asylees from other different areas in the world, especially Central and South America. So it's very uneven application of what's going on. The end result is that families remain separated, with some members of the families in the United States and some members outside the United States, and trying to find ways for at least one family member to become a U.S. citizen, to help petition family members to join them in the United States or stay here to normalize status. So this is a little graphic, which I am going to copy the link for you in the chat here, if I can find the chat. Oops. I'll copy it at the end for you. This is one of the best representations I've seen of what part of illegal immigration don't you understand. It was actually published in 2008 or 2009, I believe. The authors are there. And basically, it worked you through the convoluted immigration system that we have. And it's, for the most part, still accurate. Basically, someone has to be a U.S. citizen in the States, and if you happen to be their parent, their spouse, or their minor child, good for you. You found the fastest path to U.S. citizenship that you can find. They can petition for you. You can become a legal permanent resident, and 5 years after that, you can apply for citizenship. The entire process probably will take you about 6 to 10 years, though, because there are delays and all sorts of other things that happen along the way. If you happen to be an adult child or a sibling of a U.S. citizen, yes, your relative U.S. citizen relative can, but depending on what country you're from, your age, or if you're married or not, you may end up waiting eventually after you get your green card. Well, you may end up waiting to the point where you can actually apply for your green card for up to 22 years or so. So when people talk about getting in the line the legal way, well, this is the line. This is the legal way. And so it really creates so much problem for people while they're trying to do this in the under established immigration law. There are other fun little things you can refer to here when you if you decide to download the link that I sent about legal permanent residence and then applying for asylum and all of that. But as you can see, it's like a big maze. And this is what people are having to go through to try to normalize legal status or to gain U.S. citizenship eventually. So barriers to citizenship that many people face, most commonly face, are English language ability. Of course, people are coming from other countries where English is not their first language, so learning the language, becoming comfortable with it. Um, the lack of citizenship education classes, there just are not enough, as I've said, anywhere in the country. For example, now, La Casa has citizenship classes. We started One More Citizen. There is another smaller organization in Elkhart who sometimes has citizenship classes and sometimes doesn't. When I started doing this work, my program was the only citizenship class within about 100 miles. So it's just, even in our area, there just is, and we have people coming to classes from all over, from areas in Michigan and southern, further south in our counties and places like that. So it's definitely, and it's still an issue. Trusted legal assistance for citizenship application and information and why just not available as well. Costs for naturalization, that is a prohibitive for many people, and along with other immigration fees leading up to citizenship process. The application for citizenship is $725. That's a fee to USCIS. It often changes and fluctuates. The lack of reputable immigration legal providers, as I've said, for citizenship, and the attorney representation fees. Often attorneys will charge $500 to $2,000 more on top of that $725. And so, you can imagine if a married couple wanted to do this together, that's quite an expense when you're starting this process. There are fee waivers available through USCIS, but you have to be vetted and have to be below 200% of the federal poverty guideline or 150%. So, you have to go through that process as well. And then there are concerns over USCIS changing the naturalization test and making it more difficult. The last presidential administration did change the test. They made it much more difficult for non-native English speakers. It was written at a high school to college reading level, and tougher questions were involved with lots of dates in U.S. history. Some questions were perceived as kind of partisan, honestly. And there was a higher metric for passing, needing more questions correct to pass. Thankfully, the current presidential administration reverted the naturalization exam back to the former exam about 2 months later, so not too many people were affected by that. But there are talks now with USCIS of changing the testing to choice questions for the civics questions and an English speaking test describing what one sees in a photo. There are changes afoot for sure. So how to meet these barriers, how to cross them over, how to try to get people past them is what One More Citizen is all about. We're helping to help eliminate as many of the barriers to citizenship as possible by expanding access to citizenship education and preparing people to partake in a more stable immigration as citizens who have the ability to use their voices and participate in democracy in the voting process as full citizens in our communities in our country. One More Citizen is a private, nonprofit 501c3 organization. We're funded by donations and grants. We provide free citizenship education classes in English and in Spanish for individuals who qualify and are seeking naturalization in the United States. Some qualifying immigrants are eligible for English language exemption, and that's why we provide classes in Spanish. We would provide in other languages if we had teachers in those languages. But if you are over the age of 50 and have been a legal permanent resident for at least 20 years, or over age 55 and have been a legal permanent resident for 15 years, you qualify to do your entire process in your native language if you take an interpreter with you to the interview. Many people don't know that. If you're over the age of 65 and have been a legal permanent resident for at least 20 years, you qualify for a shortened exam at the interview. They won't choose from 100 civics questions, they'll only choose from a select 20. So you have the ability to only have to memorize 20 questions. So we provide those options for students, and we have different classes studying. One More Citizen also provides citizenship class programming, consultation, resources, support for individuals or organizations developing or promoting citizenship programming. And I'm currently in process of working with some area groups in Elkhart, LaPorte, and Niles, hoping to give them some resources, start classes of their own, and bring more classes, kind of expanding our reach, right? And to bring more classes to more communities. So we utilize accredited bilingual English, Spanish speaking English and Spanish speaking coordinators and instructors to assist and teach our classes. And just as a daughter, sister, and parent of some pretty incredible educators myself, long line of them, and as long as I've done this work, I've maintained a commitment to providing quality education with accredited educators as instructors or certified teachers in our courses. Our current instructors accredited in Indiana. At times we have had accredited instructors who are also EL certified, so they were, specifically working with EL students. I've also felt that our students just deserve the quality instruction from educators who have the experience to help them succeed. The experienced teachers have helped to create and implement effective English language and citizenship curriculum in my programs all along. Our students are really committing a great deal of time and money to this and have strong motivation to succeed. And I believe they deserve quality instruction led by accredited educators who oversee and support our volunteers working alongside the students. So, and we just, that I believe has also helped on our track record of the 100% pass rate for students who come out of our programs over the 17 years and then go to their naturalization interviews. So as you can see in the photos, these are current photos of our current class. Our classrooms are bursting full with students and volunteers, and we're enjoying every moment of it together. We prioritize working with our students in small groups with volunteer instructors who are led and supported throughout each class by the lead teacher. And we equally prioritize working with students individually as they near their naturalization interviews, often right up to the day of the interview, and sometimes in person, sometimes on Zoom in many cases. We'll meet with them. Our volunteers are dedicated, so dedicated that they often work outside class hours with the students and continue to support them towards passing those interviews. In general, we work to meet specific language needs and challenges of each student. Our accredited instructors routinely and expertly identify their specific needs and sometimes their learning needs beyond just language that our students have. And so this very effectively helps the students to succeed at level. In addition, we're fortunate to count on community support from enough volunteers to speak languages of our students who speak some of the other languages, so that our students are more fully comprehending the material we study and the requirements of naturalization interview and exam. I'll often reach out to community members or university sources with other language fluency in seeking volunteers who can help support students in their native language if we don't have volunteers who speak that language. I believe that also helps with the 100% pass rate that we have. And with the English language improvement, we consistently see 100% of the time with our students. Just memorizing material, they're actually learning and comprehending, which has been very effective. You don't need to speak another language to volunteer in our classes, though, because we do want to immerse our students in the English language. That's what happens at their interview. So, kind of the crux of our classes, they're offered 3 times a year, summer, spring, and fall, for 10 weeks. And we meet on Mondays and Wednesdays from 5:30 to 7:30. They're offered in English and in Spanish. And we do partner with organizations, as I said, trying to expand these classes into other communities. Our current and inaugural site partner is St. Adalbert St. Casimir Catholic Parish. And we feel very welcome and very at home there. Our students do as well. The class, of course, by experienced accredited educators, and we prepare students for every aspect of the naturalization interview. So when you go to your interview, the officer will ask you to respond to 10 out of the 100 U.S. history and civics questions that USCIS provides, and you need to have correct to pass. They're random 10. And then they will ask you to read and write a phrase in English, and usually on a digital tablet. So we work with students who are not as familiar with using a tablet and having to write with your hand up in the air on a tablet on a post. And then we go over interview practice from the N400 application for naturalization, which is a 20 pages long application. It has pretty high level English language in it, a lot of legal type of language. We do not give legal advice in class. We're very clear about that. But we do help them to study the language and practice the language in the form. Um, because the officer will be asking them questions that arise from that application about their moral character, their life history, their life activities, their adherence to the U.S. Constitution. It's generally the most intimidating part of the interview because it is more conversation with the officer, and some of the officers can be a little tricky sometimes. So we really try to prepare our students as they're going to face that particular part of the interview. We do always encourage them to tell the truth. That's what they need to do because again, this is the test of good moral character. We want to have citizens of good moral character in our country, right? Um, our class is really, it's just a pretty special atmosphere, a pretty special environment. We really do build community and friendships, and that's actually an intention of ours in the class. We learn from each other, and we become a family, quite honestly. We generate pretty trusted relationships between our students and instructors and volunteers, and some longtime friendships many times. We get to witness our students improving English and civic skills in real time, which is pretty exciting. And it feels like kind of being in the room where it happens, right? When we hear our students actually expressing their greater confidence in their own skills. Um, they actually express this quite often. They're very grateful for the work that we're doing. And they feel the community. And honestly, that community building is really the beautiful seed that we're planting in our own community, helping us to grow and expand and become more diverse as a community in general. Um, Go to their naturalization interviews and exams. They generally can't wait to return to class to proudly encourage their fellow classmates to have confidence in the abilities that they can do the same. And they always are so grateful and thankful to our volunteers and instructors for the support and encouragement that they're receiving throughout the process. It's a very rewarding and inspiring experience. And there are several people on the Zoom who have been a part of that experience with us, and I'm sure they can attest to how that's been for them. Um, so we also count as something very important that we intentionally work at is advocacy for immigrants. And so that atmosphere that occurs in the classroom is part of the advocacy. It's part of creating positive impact together and providing community, not only providing English skills and sharing experiences, but creating opportunity so that people get to know each other. Our classes include students from diverse cultures and countries and diverse volunteers as well, anywhere from retired folks, professionals in the university, students and faculty and staff even. And from
What happened to our sound?
I think she froze.
my life experience to work this
Oops, we
and having.
missed some of that, Nancy, because you froze.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Am I back now?
You're back.
Okay. So I don't, but basically I was saying that, we're intentional.
You froze again. Maybe it's time for question and answer. Oh dear. Okay, Melanie, it's time for that song and dance you were talking about. I'll answer all the questions.
Pam, I just sent Nancy a text, so I'm sure she's aware of it.
Oh, oh, thank you.
In the meantime, if I could say one thing about my own personal experience with some of the folks who are going through the immigration process here locally. One of them I refer to as my Kenyan son, Shaban Varajab. He has been in the country for 7 years. Juan Carlos Alarcon, who is a 3-time Grammy winner and a master's recipient from the University of Notre Dame and a bachelor's recipient from Indiana University's Ernestine M. Racklin School, and is now teaching and directing a chorus at IU South Bend and doing a million other things as well. Both he and Juan Constantino, who's the executive director of La Casa de Amistad, are recipients of DACA. And in DACA, they have to reapply every 2 years if DACA remains viable. And as Carol said, there are no pathways to citizenship for either of them, and they are huge contributors to our community.
Thank you, Beth. Now, Nancy, you're back. And we're getting near the time for question and answer, but you do your thing. Okay.
Yeah, I'll finish up here. I don't know where I cut out, so I'm sorry.
There aren't lots and lots of questions. Most of them are from me.
Okay. Well, I don't know where I cut out, but I was just trying to explain that, a
Yeah.
big part of what happens in our class is that we are learning from each other. We're creating positive impact. We're making sure that our volunteers, especially volunteers with less experience in the immigrant community, are taking away from the experience, kind of a better, more positive, more intentional about providing that positive experience, and helping to try to change the negative narrative about immigrants in our community. And so that really does create a ripple effect in anything that they do beyond volunteering. It creates a ripple effect for our students because they are having access in many times to university students where they've not had any experience before. And so it gives them a different perspective and kind of different goals as well. So we encourage our volunteers and students to share their experiences with each other in class, and hoping that those better conversations and messages will help to change an external narrative and sort of counter the anti-immigrant rhetoric that we hear so often. So we see our classes as vital advocacy in that way as well. These are citizenship requirements. You can read what's here. Basically, you have to be 18 years old, legal permanent resident for at least 5 years, and then or married to a U.S. citizen for at least 3 years while living in together with that U.S. citizen. These are the paths to permanent residence that are, USCIS requires. You have to continuously be present and physically present and resident in the United States. And many people don't know, but when U.S. citizens, when they become citizens, their minor children who are also legal permanent residents automatically become U.S. citizens at that time as well. You must be a person of good moral character, as I've said, and attached to the principles of the U.S. Constitution, and well disposed to the good order and happiness of the United States, according to USCIS. So I would say the students that I've worked with have all been well disposed and actually are contributing to the happiness of the for the for the great part. They certainly have contributed for me, my happiness. And so just in closing, this is our inaugural class. This was our inaugural citizenship class in the fall. We have an even bigger class now. As I said, we're bursting at the seams. 3 rooms that we're filling up at St. Casimir, and probably will take up 2 more soon. Um, it's a wonderful thing to be a part of. 3 of the citizens so far have now become one more citizen in the United States, or 3 of our students. And this is the ultimate goal and desire for us at One More Citizen, is that each of our students is the next one more. That they become a part of the success of that we all become a part of the success, and they too, of each one more after them. So that's kind of my spiel. Thank you for this great opportunity, and sorry I froze. Hopefully, we can answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Nancy. And I didn't want to cut you short, though. I hope I didn't cut you short, did I?
No, this is
Okay.
it. That was all I had.
Well, I have a million questions. I'm going to start at the top and we'll work our way down, okay? You say you
Okay.
don't have enough space, but do you have enough volunteers? That was my
We
question.
Yes, we absolutely need more volunteers. I have some good networking with some of the local universities, but yes, we have so many students now, and we do try to really prioritize the ones who have interviews coming up, and so we always need one-to-one work with them, and so that takes a volunteer away from a group. And with the number of students that we have right now, as I said, I currently have 56 students who are registered for the classes, and we definitely could use, we like to try to have small groups of about 2 to 3. That seems most manageable, and the students seem very comfortable with that. We don't always have that privilege, but yeah, it would be great to have some more volunteers and be able to break up those groups a little bit.
Now you're talking though Hispanic, right? Or are you talking other languages as well?
Right now, because of our location, we're at St. Albert St. Casimir, which is the heart of the Spanish-speaking immigrant community. Everybody in class are from Spanish-speaking countries, all
Okay.
the students. But over the years, yeah, we've definitely had, and I'm reaching out, talking with folks at the mosque at this point, trying to bring in some of the other immigrant groups and make them familiar with, and actually they're actually lobbying for a class at the mosque, which, immigrant groups tend to be comfortable in their own spaces. So I absolutely understand and actually welcome that. It'd be great if we could start a program at the mosque.
You don't have enough room at St. Cashmere's. What other locations might be suitable? And is One More Citizen connected still to La Casa de Amistad?
So we are completely separate. We're a completely separate nonprofit group. This is a venture that I've taken on my own. And yes, at this point, there are other classrooms available at St. Casimir. We don't at this point look to be moving, but there are other ones that we have looked at, and if need be, there are some other religious organizations reached out who would be willing to house us as well. So, but the reason that we're at St. Casimir and St. Albert is really because of people that I know in the community, immigrants that I know in the community, who have asked us to be there. They want us to be back. But La Casa kind of moved to the edge of town and still reachable, but people have asked us to be back in their neighborhood, in their community, and so that's been our response.
Okay. And of course, I would have to ask this, can our voter registration folks help in informing about voting in your program?
Yes,
Can,
I would actually love to have someone come and
okay.
speak. And actually, Diane volunteers in our class, so she she could easily do that. But so many folks on the Zoom that have volunteered with us who could easily as well. I would
Okay.
absolutely love for the league to come and give that sort of information to our class. We're always super careful with our students that they're not registering to vote before they become U.S. citizens. That actually can it actually can stop them from becoming U.S. citizen if they register to vote and they're not a U.S. citizen. So we're
Okay.
very careful about that. So we're also very careful about that message that this is what you do once you're a U.S. citizen. We do encourage them to register when they go to their naturalization oath ceremony. I've coordinated several of those with the University of Notre Dame over the years, and the league has always been there. And so I know that, that's an avenue that they can certainly take advantage of when they become
Okay.
citizens.
How long has it been that this extreme length of time it takes to get to be a citizen has been in place? Because it used to be folks just came over, didn't they, and went through immigration and How
Yeah,
long has it
well, I would
been?
say in the 17 years I've been doing this, that's been the issue. And I would say much longer, probably.
Okay.
Honestly, the last kind of sweeping action was that occurred in the 80s, and after that, things have really slowed down for people because of the different. It seems that different presidents respond to um, kind of political pressure depending on the atmosphere at the time, and in their response, they'll enact executive orders, immigration law gets passed. And so each one of those has contributed to that longer process along the way until we're kind of now really at a point where it's ridiculous, really. And we need immigration reform. I think the majority of people in this country have voiced that they want legal reform, but it's just not happening in our current political environment.
Okay. You indicate this is from Ronaldo. You indicate that your instructors are accredited, and I don't recall ever being accredited. Or is that because I was a tutor rather than an instructor? And what is the accreditation process?
Yes. So when I say accredited, I mean that they're certified teachers in the state of Indiana. So these are our lead instructors. Yes, they're not our volunteer tutors like Ronaldo was a volunteer tutor. Our lead instructor is a certified has taught in a public school or a private school setting in either Indiana or some other state. And so we want educators who are trained to be the lead instructors, and that's what we focused on and have always luckily been able to provide, so that we have the class structure is led by an educator who's trained in education and knows how to develop curriculum and also to lead volunteers so that they're following the curriculum and implementing it correctly.
Okay. And what is the cost?
It's Classes are free.
The classes are free.
I've been looking out for you in case you got here early too.
I don't know
Oh, I
what
think
that.
somebody.
Yeah, but if it's free to them, then how do you get paid? And your
Yeah.
instructor,
What's going on
or
with
are
your
they all,
legs?
is
I
everybody a
had my
volunteer?
knee replaced,
Ah,
so
Beth,
and I
I'm
was a-
meeting you.
So we're funded by donations at this point, private donations, and
Huh?
we're reaching out for grants. So that's where our funding comes from, just like in most other nonprofits.
Okay, okay.
And we're accepting donations at all times.
So it's free to everybody else. Okay, so
Yes.
then thank you very much. I'll be in touch. And then Beth has to go. Okay, and then it is, what else? And thank you very much for this excellent presentation, says Cynthia. And if anybody
Thank
else
you.
has a question that they haven't put in the chat, unmute and ask. We have a few more minutes yet.
I will just put out there that if anyone here or you know of is interested in volunteering, please send them my way. We're happy to have volunteers all the time. So
If somebody were to volunteer but could only do it like once a week or whatever, that would be okay too? Or do they have to commit to twice a week for 2 hours?
no, we give the volunteers the option of one or the other day. And some people can only do it intermittently, and we accept that too. We do like a constant or more consistent commitment if possible, but it helps us to plan better. But yes, we'll kind of meet you at your schedule and be happy for that. I know that most of the folks in the league are already quite a bit with other things, and your work is very important, so we don't want to take you away from that. But if you have extra time and interest, we'd love to have you. We'd love to have some of you back who I see here on the Zoom, and some new folks too.
I have a question about the classes are at these two Catholic churches, and you're saying most of them are Spanish speakers. What about people who are not Spanish speakers? Are the classes in English?
The classes are completely in English. Yeah, we have two classes. One class that's completely in Spanish for those who qualify to do the process in their native language, and then the bigger class completely in English because our students need to be immersed in English because
Yeah,
that's all that happens at their interview. The whole interview is done, their naturalization interview in English. Yeah.
well, we have friends who are Thai from Thailand, and they have a restaurant and they are working toward becoming citizens. So the classes are in English. They speak English, but they need some
Yeah.
help in getting ready for the classes.
They're welcome in our classes. We would love to have them join us. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
As I
thank
said,
you.
over the years, there have been people from over 87 countries.
I have a couple of questions. It's Melanie. What kind of training do you do for volunteers? I'll just let you do that one and then I'll do the other one.
I think she froze again.
I'm unmuted, so I know
No, it's
it's Nancy.
I'm moving around, so it isn't me. So I think it's Nancy. Yeah, she's frozen.
Pam,
Oh,
I could
okay.
probably address that question.
Okay.
For the training, Nancy works with folks either in person or on Zoom, and she has a collection of documents in a Google Doc format, which they're very precise. And when people come, if they'd like to partner with someone in the beginning, the first class or two, then you can work with someone who's tutored before. So it's very smooth, and we have volunteers who, are retired, to, students from the universities and colleges. So, it is one of the most life-affirming, joyful experiences I think anyone could ever have. So I'm a fan.
Okay, so people who are not accredited teachers, I mean, I was one, but I didn't keep up my license. What do the tutors do? They just work one-on-one with some of the people who need that?
I think Nancy's back.
Yeah.
There she is. Okay.
I'm so
Thanks.
sorry. I apologize. Yeah, this happens once in a blue moon and it's happening a lot today. So I'm very sorry.
Anyway, I was asking how you, and Diane explained a little bit of how you trained tutors. But tutors work one-on-one with people, I'm assuming, that people who need help at what stage or every stage?
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, we actually do a pretty good orientation with our volunteers so that they have a good idea of the materials that we use and how to use them. And we'll often pair new volunteers with experienced volunteers so that they have a good idea of how to go about working with the students as well. And so, yeah, we have a good preparation process for them. I'm sorry, what was the other part of your question? I forgot.
The other thing I wanted to know about is who are your donors? I mean, not necessarily what people, but what kinds of people. Where are you looking for when you're looking for donors?
Yeah, so far we've had private donations from people who are interested in, and they're not politically connected at all. They're mostly people who have been connected with citizenship volunteering in the past. So private donations at this point, and then we're exploring some citizenship grants for education classes to help along that path. So we're as we're a very young, very new organization, and still kind of feeling our way through that.
Okay,
So.
what a citizenship grant would be from the government?
There are some available with USCIS, but those are very difficult to obtain. USCIS has several citizenship grants available, and generally, I have applied for those over the years. Generally, they go to much, much bigger markets like Los Angeles, Texas, Dallas, places like that, yeah, New York, where the impact is greater with larger numbers of people that can be benefited from them. So USCIS is one area, but there are other smaller grants that do lean towards education that we're pursuing.
Okay, do you write the grants yourself, or do you have a grant writer, a
We don't
volunteer
have a
grant
grant.
writer?
No, we don't have a volunteer grant writer yet. If anyone would like to put those services forward, we'll accept them for sure.
Well, I was wondering if that might be somebody that you were looking for.
Yes, we are. Absolutely. Somebody did ask in the chat about a phone number for volunteering, so I put our phone number and my email and our website there. You can actually sign up to volunteer on the website too. We do have a website, so we're still developing that and expanding that, and yeah, just getting our feet wet. We're enjoying this process.
Are there any more questions? Nanci, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your passion.
Yes, thank you.
Um,
Thank you for
and it's
supporting all
a-
the voters in our community.
and it's a benefit for our community as well.
Definitely. You know, I've gone to several of the naturalization ceremonies, quite a few over the last few years, and registered voters afterwards. And it really is heartwarming to be able to do that. And a lot of people don't know exactly. I mean, I know they've had the classes, but actually registering and knowing what they have to do, and it's real. It really is heartwarming to see the smiles on people's faces when they have accomplished that and leave. I mean, they've got naturalized that day too. That's a huge thing, obviously, but
Yeah. And
it's
how
really
long
rewarding.
to really appreciate the length of time that it takes to get there. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing, especially when you're looking to try to reunite your family and, all be living in one place. And so, those are the smiles that mean the most to me. I remember the last oath ceremony that I helped to coordinate at Notre Dame. There was a family from Armenia that had been students of ours, and their family members, each one of them had been able to petition for the one behind, and they were all there together at the naturalization ceremony finally.
Wow.
And it was really tough to keep a dry eye. They were they were just so elated and
Yeah.
so content to finally have this very stable legal status and be full members of our country. Yeah.
Nanci, thank you very much. It has
Thank
been
you.
Yes.
lovely. And I want to
Thank
thank
you.
everybody who has been here, who came today. Thank you all for being here. Now everybody should go out and go for a walk because it's supposed to be 60 degrees today. We all need our steps.
Mhm.
Thank you. It's
Thank
good to
you
see
all.
so many
Thank
of
you,
you.
Nanci.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.